Layouts are at the core of how you create a modern, beautiful Android application for your users. But if you're not careful, your amazing layouts can create a monster performance drain. My name is Colt McCandless, and if you're using some fancy features on your view layouts, you might be getting into trouble. Remember that anytime the position or size of an object changes in the view hierarchy, there may be ramifications with respect to other layouts in the view. For example, if a button suddenly doubles in size, a neighboring view may need to be moved, and then of course the parent view may need to be resized as a result. See, there's a small set of properties of a view that when changed require the layout phase of the rendering pipeline to occur before updating the screen. Basically, this stage traverses through the view hierarchy to calculate the correct positions and sizes for all views impacted by the change. In general, this is a reasonably fast process, but if you're not paying attention, you can trigger an expensive cascade of layout operations which can quickly chip away at your frame time. A perfect example of this is the relative layout container. Basically, this layout allows you to define the position of a view with respect to the position of some other view in the hierarchy. For example, always stay to the right of the text box, or at the top of the current container, or stay at the top of the topmost sibling, but always to the right of other siblings in my container. You know, weird stuff like that. The issue here is that in order to properly position views in relation to one another, the container must kick off a second layout pass before it can finalize positions and move on to rendering. Basically, it works like this. The first pass will visit views and calculate their positions and sizes based upon their personal requests. The relative layout then uses this data to figure out the proper positions of correlated views or any weight sizes, and then makes boundary adjustments accordingly. At this point, a second layout pass is kicked off to determine the final positions to use for rendering. The result? 2 full layout operations through the children of the container just to get things situated on the screen. And the trick is that this happens every time a change happens in a relative layout. But be warned here, it's not the only container that can produce this double layout behavior. For example, linear layout generally only issues a single layout request until you add the measure with largest child parameter, in which case it can end up needing to kick off a second layout pass to resolve the proper sizes. A grid layout has a very similar issue. This container allows relative positioning but avoids the double taxation by pre-processing the child view relationships, which I mean is great, right? I mean, you get all the functionality of a relative layout container without any of the performance. You get all the functionality of this all gets thrown out the window anytime the layout uses fill gravity, or in some cases, if weights are used in the wrong spots. And then of course you're back into the same performance problem. Now, by themselves, multiple layouts from these containers won't be much of a performance burden, but put them in the wrong spot and you'll end up with some big problems. For example, anytime they're the root element in your view hierarchy, or when the container has a deep view hierarchy beneath it, or when there's lots of them populating the screen, like in a list view. Basically, this problem can then compound throughout the hierarchy. Imagine a relative layout at the top of your view hierarchy, which will then do 2 layout passes. And then later on, you've got some list view below that has a cascade of grid layouts inside of it. Basically, the leaf nodes in this configuration could end up having to do a layout phase run on them 8 times each. Obviously, you've got better places that you could be spending your frame time. So, looking to avoid the plague of double layouts? Here's a few helpful tips. Firstly, you can track down whether layouts are eating into your frame rate by taking a firm look at the systrace tool. If you see that the measure/layout portions of a rendering frame are unusually high, then there's a good chance that it's eating into frame rate in a bad way. Secondly, take a swing at minimizing the depth of your hierarchy. See, sometimes double layouts are simply unavoidable, so reducing the amount of depth in your view hierarchy will help reduce the impact they have on your general frame rate. Thirdly, avoid calling layout requests in any situations where it's absolutely not critical to do so. When a view requests a layout, it's going to trigger a layout in all of its parents. Now, although there's extensive caching in this part of the system to try to make this as fast as possible, it can still be a very, very expensive operation. Fourthly, watch the rest of the Android performance patterns videos. Fifthly, join the Google+ community and ask questions to other performance gurus. And 12thly, keep calm, profile your code, and always remember, perf matters.